First thing first, you have to have the right equipment and the right tools. This is the kind of beeswax that we got at the Ukrainian store down in little Ukraine. You can see there's a small design on the cube of beeswax that is a design of the tool that you use to make the design. My grandmother was Opaluch Szczerbiak. She came to this country from the Ukraine in 1912, and one of the best traditions she taught me was how to make peasant-style Ukrainian Easter eggs. We have to have a hot plate, have to have a steel cup to hold the wax, the melted wax. This is how you start your design on the egg. I put a dot on the top of the egg. From that point, about 3/4 of an inch down from that dot, I dip my needle into the hot wax, and I put a dot about 3/4 of an inch down from the dot and bring it up to the center. And I keep doing that until I've made a complete circle. And then I go around, I come back around, and I make like a little chain. And you start with the dot, and you make a little circle chain like. And you add that you try to touch the end of the chain and bring it around and do it again, like a little circle. And again, and again, and again, until you have a completed chain. And then you can leave it at one chain. I like the 2 chains. So then I drop down about 2/8 of an inch, and I put my dot again, and I do the same thing. And I go all the way around the egg, and I have a double chain. She, in the Ukraine, was the youngest of 8. I think one of her brothers brought her over on the ship in 1912 to meet Michael, her husband, who they must have married in the Ukraine, and passed her off, and they came over to Chicago. And my grandmother and grandfather had 6 children. She had 2 boys before my mother was born. Unfortunately, they passed away when they were around 2 years old. My mother was born, my Uncle Steve was born, and then they had one more boy who was born 2 years later, who lived probably 2 years, and he also passed away. And then my Aunt Rose was born. They all lived on Langley in the block house on 112th and Langley, again on the 3rd floor in a cold water flat. My grandmother worked at the Tivoli Theater on 63rd and Cottage Grove for 25 years as a cleaning lady. And during that time, there had been vaudeville acts, and she talked about seeing Bob Hope and also Sophie Tucker. She would get from the girls that danced, the vaudeville dancers, when their tap shoes would wear out, she would take them home and take the taps off and dye them black, and that was what she and my aunt and my mother would wear. I have a photo of her standing off of her apartment on the fire escapes with some ladies in the background whom I don't know, but if you look down you can see that she is wearing the black dyed tap shoes. And their neighbors were the Slaverios, and they were very, very poor and had no electricity. So Mr. Slaverio, they drilled a hole in the wall and put the wire through the wall, and that was the Slaverios' only form of electricity, which was very generous. My grandmother had a health issue. She had asthma very bad. In order to relieve the asthma, she would send us to the market hall, my brother and I, to get her the box of Dr. Blotzer. I thought they were Dr. Blotzer. My brother corrected me not long ago and said they were Dr. Blossom cigarettes, in a red box about like that. I never knew it until I was riding the bus home with my sister-in-law Esther on Cottage Grove, and I said, "Ooh, what is that stink?" And my sister-in-law Esther said, "That's Mary Jane." And of course I knew back then that was marijuana. And I said to myself, in my brain, it went off like tick, 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 tick. Oh my God, Grandma was smoking marijuana? I almost died. And then you have the middle of the egg, which would be completely clear unless you decide to make another design on the egg. And I put the year, but you could put anything. You could draw a picture of bunnies, of a puppy. You can make a cross. You can make a flower, like a lily, because it's Easter time after all. Anything you want. A fire truck. But I like to put the year because that's when you can remember when you've made your egg. And in this case, this and one for Nino have been in my china cabinet since 1983, and they're preserved. For my grandmother, life was very difficult. She had an abusive husband who at one point must have came in drunk and started on her, and my mother, my Aunt Rose, and my Uncle Steve got him down on the floor and held him down so she could run out of the apartment to help get her away from him. She could make borscht that was out of this world. She made everything. I remember that she would make pork chops and sheep, but she would put parsley in everything. But she was an awesome cook. Always, to me, Grandma always looked beautiful. She had beautiful white, clear skin, and every night she would slather up theatrical cold cream on her face and her hands and her arms, and her face was smooth, and she had the most magnetic smile you could ever have and the biggest blue eyes, and she was just a kind woman. When my children were young, maybe they were 6, 7, 8 months old, she would cross her leg and put them on her foot, and she would rock up and down and sing Ukrainian nursery rhymes to them, and she would play with their hands, and instead of saying patty cake, she would go, "Hi, hi, hi, kone kuhulai, hop, 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 sivan ki galop." Eventually, she passed away in 1978 as a result of probably her pneumonia and asthma and old age. It was a very, very sad time for us. We really missed her. We're going to do a dark red egg dye. Keeping traditions alive is very important. Traditions represent a critical piece of our culture. They help form the structure and foundation of our families and our society. They remind us that we are part of a history that defines our past, shapes who we are today and who we are likely to become.